He succeeds me as Duke of Cornwall and takes on the responsibilities for the Duchy of Cornwall.
Only 54% of Britons now say the monarchy is important to the country's future, the lowest figure ever recorded.
King Charles breaking his silence on his, quote, frightening experience with cancer. The monarch diagnosed with an unspecified form of the disease.
Inside Windsor Castle, a private message from King Charles delivered by Princess Anne did more than reflect a father's final thoughts. It quietly unsettled the future king. Why did the message focus so strongly on Catherine, Princess of Wales? How did Prince William react behind closed doors? And what does this moment reveal about the monarchy's shifting foundation? The walls of Windsor Castle have seen centuries of history, but what unfolded behind them in early 2024 was not for the history books just yet. It wasn't televised. No photographers were present. No ceremonial announcement was made. Only a tightly controlled group of senior royals gathered in a quiet room, the atmosphere dense with expectation and unease. Every movement was measured, every word, for the moment, withheld. When Princess Anne entered the room, there was no formal escort, and none was needed. Her presence alone brought the room to attention. For decades, she had remained one of the most private, consistent, and loyal figures within the royal family. The envelope in her hand, marked only with the late king's handwriting, was the focal point of a conversation no one truly wanted to have. It was understood this message had come from King Charles himself, his words prepared during treatment, not as a public address, but as a deeply personal message meant for the family. There has been no official record of such a letter, no confirmation by the palace. But royal watchers and protocol analysts have long suggested that Charles, aware of his health complications, had made preparations to express private wishes in the event of his absence. It would not be uncharacteristic for such a message to be entrusted to Anne, a woman who had never courted attention, yet had earned the full confidence of her mother, Queen Elizabeth, and later her brother, the king. Her record as the most dutiful working royal is well documented, and her avoidance of public scandal has only elevated her standing inside palace walls. Anne's demeanor in moments of gravity has always been unshakable. As she stood at the front of the room unfolding the note, no one interrupted. What followed wasn't a decree. It wasn't a change in succession or a policy decision. It was personal. According to palace insiders, King Charles had wanted his family to understand one thing clearly: the values he believed should carry the monarchy forward. What unsettled the room was not the content alone, but the focus of the message. It was not centered around William, the next in line to the throne. It did not highlight his readiness or his vision. Instead, the king had reportedly chosen to speak of someone else, Catherine, Princess of Wales. The message praised her steadiness, her composure, and her capacity to carry the emotional weight of the monarchy through uncertain times. Again, no formal transcript of such a message has been released. But commentators close to the royal household noted a shift shortly after Charles's statement was shared privately. Public appearances were reduced. Media interactions became more guarded. A quiet reconfiguration was taking place, and the spotlight began moving in a direction few had expected. Prince William's role in the family has always been well understood. As heir apparent, he has spent his adult life in preparation for the crown. From early public engagements to state tours and military service, he has navigated the path laid out for him. Yet those close to the royal family have long acknowledged the immense pressure placed upon him, especially since the loss of Queen Elizabeth in 2022. The shift in generational leadership, combined with ongoing family tensions and relentless public scrutiny, has left little room for error. So when Princess Anne delivered a message from the king that emphasized Catherine's quiet leadership rather than William's constitutional role, the reaction, while not confirmed in detail, was described by some as a moment of visible strain. William has always presented himself as composed, even in emotionally charged situations. But insiders suggest that this moment marked a private reckoning, one that surfaced not as conflict, but as weight. The strain was not about power. There is no indication that the king's message questioned William's suitability as future monarch. Rather, it seemed to recognize what the public has increasingly seen, that Catherine's presence, more than ceremonial, has become symbolically central to the stability of the institution. Her ability to navigate controversy without escalation, to engage the public without spectacle, and to remain grounded despite constant exposure, has set her apart in the eyes of both the press and the people. Catherine's public role is supported by years of consistent work in areas like early childhood development and mental health awareness. These initiatives are not superficial. They are structured programs, supported by research and partnerships, and they have shaped her public image as more than a figurehead. As public interest in traditional monarchy continues to shift, Catherine has emerged as a relatable symbol of modern duty. Observers often draw comparisons between Catherine and Queen Elizabeth in terms of temperament. Though separated by generations and royal context, both women share a reputation for measured expression and unshakable composure. This is not romanticism. It is echoed in commentary from royal historians and longtime palace staff. It is also evident in how Catherine has responded to challenges in recent years, including media invasions, family controversy, and more recently, her health. On 22 March 2024, Catherine appeared in a video from Windsor to confirm her cancer diagnosis. She spoke plainly, without dramatic flourish, requesting privacy for her family while expressing gratitude to the medical team supporting her. The announcement was met with widespread sympathy, but also admiration. This was not just a royal revealing a medical condition. It was a working mother, a wife, and a public figure facing a personal crisis with calm clarity. That video marked a shift. The outpouring from the public, from around the United Kingdom and internationally, wasn't just a reflection of sympathy. It was recognition of character. The British monarchy has often relied on public goodwill during times of transition or uncertainty. In that moment, it was Catherine, not through command but through conduct, who held that goodwill. Inside the palace, the dynamics of succession are always complex. While Prince William remains the direct heir, the reality of public perception cannot be ignored. In recent years, the institution has faced mounting criticism. The departure of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, the ongoing scrutiny of Prince Andrew, and the fading generational link following Queen Elizabeth's death have all contributed to a shifting foundation. As future monarch, William is positioned at the center of this. Yet many close to the monarchy have observed that Catherine has increasingly served as his stabilizer, publicly and privately. While this is not formally acknowledged by the palace, their appearances often show a partnership rooted in mutual trust rather than hierarchy. William has acknowledged her strength in interviews, referring to her as a source of balance and resolve. That reliance, especially in times of emotional or institutional pressure, is now widely recognized. If the king's private letter emphasized this dynamic, it would not have been a directive but an affirmation, one rooted in Charles's own understanding of what modern monarchy demands. Charles himself spent decades waiting in the shadow of his mother's reign. He is no stranger to being measured against precedent. His recognition of Catherine, if true, would reflect an evolved understanding that leadership today is not only about lineage, but about connection. Within the broader public narrative, Catherine's place in the royal family has grown from supportive spouse to central figure. Her actions are deliberate. She does not comment on politics. She rarely makes emotional public statements. Yet her presence in national life is steady and respected. Polls continue to show her among the most popular members of the royal family. This is not solely due to media coverage, it stems from consistency over time. So when Anne stood at the front of the room and delivered Charles's message, one that centered not just on succession, but on the values that should sustain it, Catherine's name at the heart of that message may not have surprised everyone. But it did shift something. According to royal correspondence, that moment set the tone for the weeks that followed, in both public messaging and internal alignment. The days following the private reading of King Charles's personal message were, on the surface, business as usual. Public appearances resumed, press releases went out, and the palace gates remained unchanged. But behind closed doors, a shift had occurred. It wasn't about authority. William was still heir to the throne. His position was not in question. But what had changed was the emotional center of the institution. The quiet, measured gravity now appeared to rest elsewhere. Catherine's role in the royal family had always been publicly understood in supportive terms. She was often introduced as the Princess of Wales, the wife of the future king, the mother of the heirs. Yet in recent years, and especially since Queen Elizabeth's passing, royal commentators and political analysts had begun to note a change. Catherine wasn't simply standing beside the monarchy, she was helping carry it. Unlike traditional royal figures, Catherine did not rely on ceremony or proclamation to assert influence. Her presence was defined by patterns, measured, consistent, and carefully crafted. In each public engagement, whether it involved early childhood education or community outreach, she appeared not just polished, but deeply informed. Behind her initiatives were long-term strategies and formal partnerships with academic and nonprofit institutions, reflecting more than just royal patronage. This professional approach to royal duty is not speculative. It has been confirmed through both press briefings and institutional publications tied to her work. In many ways, Catherine had taken on the long-game strategy of monarchy, focusing not on headlines, but on building institutional credibility over time. The Royal Foundation Center for Early Childhood, for example, wasn't launched as a photo opportunity. It was the culmination of over a decade of work in understanding child development and its long-term impact on society. These efforts didn't grab tabloid front pages, but they earned quiet respect from professionals and the public alike. This deliberate, strategic commitment had also earned her something rarer than public praise: internal trust. According to royal correspondents, aides who worked closely with both King Charles and Prince William viewed Catherine as one of the few members of the family able to operate independently, yet never outside the collective interest of the monarchy. She was rarely caught off guard, rarely misquoted, and never off message. That level of consistency is not accidental. It is cultivated. So when King Charles's private message reportedly centered not on William's formal role, but on Catherine's stabilizing influence, it struck a chord. It wasn't about bypassing the line of succession. That was never in doubt. Rather, it was about acknowledging where the monarchy's public strength had come from in its most uncertain moments. William, too, had seen this over the years. In interviews, he had referred to Catherine as his rock, a term often used in passing but with growing public resonance. In a family often strained by internal rifts and external media pressure, Catherine had managed to avoid both. While William navigated headlines and strategic decisions, she served as a calming force, not in silence, but in steadiness. This balance had become more noticeable in recent years, particularly as the royal household faced mounting scrutiny. The departures of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle brought not only personal heartbreak, but institutional complications. Their interviews, public statements, and eventual relocation to the United States reframed the global conversation around the monarchy. Accusations of neglect, racial insensitivity, and internal rigidity placed Buckingham Palace under renewed pressure. At the same time, the ongoing scandal involving Prince Andrew and his association with convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein severely damaged the monarchy's public credibility. Though Andrew was formally removed from public duties and stripped of his honorary titles, the shadow of that controversy lingered, especially with legal settlements and ongoing public interest. These events significantly shaped the environment in which William and Catherine were now expected to lead. William has often found himself at the intersection of these institutional pressures. His role demanded not just ceremonial duty, but strategic thinking about the future of a monarchy no longer protected by untouchable status. He had to consider how to modernize without fragmenting the institution, how to remain accessible without appearing vulnerable. In this climate, the presence of a trusted partner like Catherine has been crucial, not simply as a spouse, but as someone whose public consistency reinforces credibility. The reality is that Catherine's growing influence has been widely observed but rarely formalized. There has never been a declaration or title change acknowledging her expanded role. Still, her presence in key royal initiatives meetings with government figures, and behind-the-scenes work with institutional partners has grown steadily. Her appearances are now studied not just for style, but for substance, who she meets, what she says, and what causes she chooses to highlight. This subtle but strategic elevation has drawn comparisons to the late Queen Elizabeth in her early reign. Commentators have noted that both women share a commitment to structure, protocol, and emotional restraint. They do not overshare. They do not stray from the central message. They provide assurance not through charisma, but through reliability. That kind of public trust is difficult to manufacture, and even more difficult to sustain. For William, the emotional implications of this shift are likely complex. While there is no public confirmation of any rift or discontent, it's clear that being heir in the modern monarchy carries an extraordinary psychological burden. Not only is he expected to uphold centuries of tradition, but he is also expected to adapt those traditions to fit a skeptical, digitally connected, and politically sensitive world. This is not speculation. It is an observable reality faced by every royal in the current generation. The balance between personal integrity, family legacy, and institutional evolution is difficult. William, who lost his mother at a young age, has lived with the tension of public identity since childhood. His adulthood has been a long preparation for a throne that remains symbolic but highly scrutinized. In that context, King Charles's private message, if accurately paraphrased by those close to the family, can be seen as a statement not of judgment, but of reflection. A father acknowledging that strengthening the monarchy does not always come from hierarchy. Sometimes it comes from proximity to the people, from emotional intelligence, from quiet, unwavering discipline. And in Catherine, those qualities are increasingly evident. It is worth noting that King Charles has, in past public speeches, praised both William and Catherine for their sense of service and their forward-looking approach. During Platinum Jubilee celebrations and Commonwealth Day messages, Charles emphasized the importance of generational continuity and modern relevance. While he has never publicly assigned roles beyond those dictated by tradition, the language of service and character has become more prominent, language often associated with Catherine's style of leadership. As Charles began reducing his public appearances during treatment, more attention naturally shifted toward William and Catherine. They became, in practical terms, the monarchy's most visible figures. Yet their style differed sharply from the attention-seeking narratives that have at times engulfed the wider family. There were fewer interviews, fewer reactive statements. Instead, there were focused engagements, planned months in advance, with community organizations, healthcare workers, and educational foundations. These appearances were not driven by headline value, but by long-term strategy. And as many media analysts noted, the messaging became clearer: stability, service, and simplicity. It mirrored the tone once set by Queen Elizabeth during challenging times, a style of leadership that favored calm over confrontation. In the face of this shift, questions began to arise quietly within royal circles and in the press. If the future of the monarchy is as much about emotional continuity as it is about constitutional structure, then who carries that emotional continuity forward? William, by lineage and title, remains the undisputed heir. But the emotional narrative increasingly frames Catherine as the anchor. Again, this is not palace doctrine. It has not been written into any constitutional brief. But it is the narrative forming through repeated public moments and royal behavior. The kind of narrative that, once it settles, becomes difficult to ignore. As this pattern unfolded, commentators began to look more closely at Princess Anne's relationship with Catherine. Though they have not shared the kind of publicly warm dynamic often seen between Queen Elizabeth and Princess Margaret, their bond appears built on mutual respect. Both are committed to duty. Both are cautious with the press. And both have reputations for getting the work done without distraction. Recent joint appearances, including visits to military units and healthcare centers, suggest a deepening professional rapport. While there is no official acknowledgement of Anne mentoring Catherine, their visible coordination and shared approach to service speak volumes. The optics, 2 women in uniformed reserve service roles, visiting teams on the ground, staying on message without spectacle, are not accidental. It is within this context that Anne's role in conveying King Charles's private sentiments takes on added weight. If Anne did express personal belief in Catherine's steadiness, it would not be surprising. Anne has long prioritized character over ceremony. Her trust is hard-won and rarely stated publicly. If she aligned herself with the message Charles reportedly emphasized, it would mark more than a familial endorsement. It would mark generational continuity based on shared values. If there was any remaining doubt about how much pressure Prince William was under, it became clearer in the weeks that followed the internal delivery of the King's message. While no single event captured it outright, the cumulative pattern of public behavior, institutional positioning, and media speculation pointed to one unavoidable truth: the monarchy was entering a new phase, and William stood directly in the path of that transition. It was never a question of succession. By constitutional law, William remains the heir to the throne. There has been no discussion, formal or informal, of altering that line. But what has changed, according to numerous royal commentators, is the center of influence, the public's emotional alignment, and the symbolic trust of the nation. It no longer rests solely on the shoulders of the next king. Increasingly, it is shared, and in many moments carried, by Catherine. For William, this is likely a source of both reassurance and quiet complexity. Reassurance, because he is not facing the weight of expectation alone. Complexity, because the crown he has prepared for his entire life is no longer just about formal duty. It is about public confidence, moral credibility, and institutional clarity, all of which are now judged in real time by a population that no longer gives blind loyalty to royal tradition. The modern monarchy does not operate in a vacuum. It must respond not only to ceremonial expectations, but to cultural shifts, generational priorities, and international scrutiny. From climate policy to social justice, the royal family is expected to reflect values that resonate with a changing society. In this climate, every appearance, every word, and every misstep carries amplified consequences. Catherine, in that regard, has become an unlikely standard-bearer, not because she sought attention, but because she avoided it. Her approach has been disciplined, measured, and devoid of controversy. She does not speak on political issues. She does not react impulsively. Her silence in certain moments has often said more than public statements could. And in a family historically known for internal leaks and media drama, that kind of restraint stands out. William, meanwhile, has had to play a dual role: protector of tradition and agent of reform. His position is unenviable. He cannot afford to be radical, but he also cannot afford to remain static. He must navigate inherited expectations while charting a path forward. In interviews, he has spoken about his desire to modernize the institution. But modernizing a monarchy is not as simple as changing a policy. It requires shifting public perception while preserving institutional continuity. This task is made even more difficult by the legacy of his father's reign. King Charles, though committed to streamlining the monarchy and focusing on core duties, has been a polarizing figure throughout his public life. From the breakdown of his first marriage to his long-delayed ascension to the throne, his image has always been complicated. Now, amid ongoing cancer treatment, he has stepped back from many public duties, creating a visible vacuum that William and Catherine are expected to fill. Yet William cannot do this alone. The emotional bandwidth required to lead the monarchy through this transitional moment is immense. And in Catherine, he has not only a partner, but a figure whose public appeal transcends royal structure. She is, as one former palace advisor described, the crown's calm. While William fields constitutional expectations, Catherine anchors public sentiment. The response to her cancer diagnosis in March 2024 made that dynamic visible. It was not just the gravity of the announcement, it was the clarity with which she delivered it. In less than 3 minutes, she redefined what royal communication could look like: personal, composed, and responsible. The video, filmed in Windsor, has since been viewed millions of times across platforms. and it drew praise not only from the public, but from political leaders, international media, and even critics of the monarchy. This kind of public goodwill is not transactional. It is built through consistency, vulnerability, and the ability to represent something larger than oneself. Catherine, without saying much, has come to embody those qualities. She has become, as some royal correspondents now suggest, a soft power asset, a term more often used in diplomacy than in monarchy, but one that fits. In previous generations, such influence would have remained largely behind the scenes. Queen Elizabeth, for all her public appearances, wielded her influence through tone, continuity, and silence. Her strength was her stability. That model appears to have quietly shaped Catherine's approach as well. Unlike more vocal or polarizing royal figures, she leans on discipline, not disruption. This alignment between character and role is what many believe Charles was alluding to in his private message, if such a message was indeed centered on her. While there is no official record, and the palace has not confirmed any details, insiders have noted that Charles always valued composure and duty over visibility. He respected the monarchy not just as an institution, but as a symbol. And if he chose to express private admiration for Catherine's embodiment of that symbol, it would reflect his own values. The fact that Princess Anne was reportedly the one to deliver this message only adds to the credibility of the sentiment. Anne has long been the monarchy's most steadfast workhorse, known for carrying out hundreds of engagements per year with minimal press attention. Her loyalty to Queen Elizabeth and to the monarchy as a whole is undisputed. She has no ambition for power. Her role is service. If she felt strongly enough to carry a message from the king that highlighted Catherine's importance, it would be rooted in deep personal conviction, not performative symbolism. Observers have noted that Anne and Catherine's recent joint appearances may reflect more than just shared scheduling. Their styles are strikingly similar, reserved, thoughtful, and effective. Neither indulges in spectacle. Both are described by aides as exacting and focused. This convergence is not theatrical. It is institutional. It also highlights a generational alignment that could shape the monarchy's future. While Prince William represents the next sovereign, Anne and Catherine represent something equally critical: the enduring structure of trust and discipline. In times of national instability, public figures who embody those traits often carry more emotional influence than those who hold formal titles. And that, perhaps, is what makes the current moment so delicate. The monarchy is not simply preparing for a change in leadership. It is navigating a change in cultural function. It is moving from a symbol of national endurance to a symbol of public service. This is not a decision that can be made through legislation. It is one that unfolds slowly, through gestures, messaging, and presence. Within this evolving structure, William's challenge is unique. He must balance the responsibilities of a future king with the realities of modern public life. He must remain relatable while preserving the institution's mystique, and he must do so under the relentless gaze of public and media scrutiny. In this balancing act, Catherine's role becomes more than complementary. It becomes essential. Her ability to communicate without overexposure, to lead without demanding control, and to represent the monarchy without becoming its mouthpiece, positions her as a stabilizing force in a time of transition. This reality is not lost on senior palace officials. According to press reports following her cancer announcement, there was a concerted effort to shield Catherine from excessive public pressure while also allowing her to retain her central position. The messaging was clear. She is undergoing treatment, but she remains committed. She may be recovering, but she is not retreating. Such clarity is rare in a family often clouded by mixed signals and media spin. It is one of the reasons why Catherine continues to be viewed with such credibility. She does not promise transformation. She models quiet consistency. And in the eyes of many, that is what the monarchy needs most right now. This is also what may have made the king's private reflections so powerful. Not because they changed any official succession, not because they altered titles or ranks, but because they acknowledged something that many had already seen. Leadership is not always about position. Sometimes it is about presence. And so, even as William continues to prepare for the formal responsibilities that will one day be his, it is Catherine's ongoing steadiness that frames the monarchy's emotional tone. Not in the headlines, not in the constitutional documents, but in the growing consensus among those who watch the institution most closely. As King Charles stepped back from public duties during his treatment in early 2024, the weight of public expectation naturally shifted toward Prince William and Catherine, Princess of Wales. Yet, in this transition, something more subtle emerged. It wasn't just about stepping in, it was about who the public and the institution were beginning to center emotionally. Catherine's role expanded not through formal declarations, but through continuity. Even during her medical recovery, organizations tied to her patronage confirmed her behind-the-scenes involvement. Her initiatives, particularly in early childhood development, remained active, and partners cited her influence in ongoing strategic planning. This level of sustained engagement, especially during personal adversity, signaled a degree of institutional trust not commonly extended beyond direct heirs. This quiet consistency contrasted with the volatility the monarchy has endured in recent years. Public trust in the monarchy, according to the British Social Attitudes Survey published in April 2024, has dropped to 54%, the lowest since records began in 1983. In this climate, emotional trust matters more than ceremonial presence, and Catherine has come to embody that reassurance. Her influence, according to royal analysts, lies not in titles, but in restraint. She avoids public commentary, limits interviews, and prioritizes long-term social issues over short-term headlines. This approach has earned her credibility, not just with the public, but within the institution itself. She is viewed not as a symbolic presence, but as a stabilizing one. Prince William's position remains constitutionally secure. As heir, his role is clear, but his leadership now coexists with a public narrative that increasingly centers Catherine as the moral and emotional anchor of the monarchy. It's a dynamic not formalized on paper, but evident in how public sentiment has evolved. Commentators describe them as a partnership where authority and trust are distributed, not equally in power, but aligned in purpose. Princess Anne's involvement in conveying the king's private sentiments, if accurately reported, adds weight to this quiet shift. Known for her dedication to service and avoidance of spectacle, Anne's support would reflect a deeper institutional acknowledgement. Though no part of Charles's message has been officially released, its reported emphasis on Catherine's role aligns with the values he has long upheld: duty, steadiness, and personal discipline. As the monarchy continues through a period of uncertainty, it is not authority alone that sustains it, but presence. And increasingly, that presence is defined not by who wears the crown, but by who carries its weight without needing to be asked. With that, we have reached the end of today's video. If you have come this far with us, be sure to check out other videos on the channel.